We grew up, obviously, with a lot of, particularly in fiction, so a lot of Hollywood movies, TV shows, this idea of what the future would be like, dystopian or otherwise, types of technology. Growing up, like the Star Trek Positive Future had a lot of technology in it that we can actually see today, that sort of thing. But what about this idea that we've gone from looking forward to what will be coming in the future to the fact that maybe it's already here and that we've already starting to see it. Now, we just, jokingly talked about our multicam setup here. We're carrying around devices in our pockets that are truly extraordinary, regardless of make, model or type, that are so highly functional, and they connect you so much to the rest of the world that to me is the beginning. Like, we are here. What was talked about as being in the future is now here, and that can extrapolate into a whole bunch of other things that I think are going to be coming sooner rather than later.
Well, that's true, and I think that one of the big things that always was, probably the hallmark of science fiction, effectively can be boiled down to communication, and that's communication between devices as much as between humans. So whether we're talking about social media in the modern age or device communicating, we've now got sensors in just about every device. We've got cloud networks and internet and all manner of devices communicating, because computing power has just escalated phenomenally in the last 5 or 6 years, and the communications between devices now is possible. Plus, you can run artificial intelligence and machine learning over the information coming through the sensors, and this allows autonomous decision making. So straight away, that sets a science fiction future.
And that whole Big Brother concept that was made famous by things like 1984, that sort of thing. It's not, maybe the particulars of how it actually is being enacted are not the same as what the book had or what the movie had or anything like that, but there are some things in there that are cause for concern, you would think.
Well, there's no question that we are being controlled. We're being watched all the time. Now, the irony, I think, compared to 1984, is you're not being watched by Big Brother, you're being watched by everyone else. And that's, of course, leading to situations where what certain people think is the right way to behave is often causing a polarised opinion by people who think exactly the opposite. So we can't find any middle ground anymore. In fact, the world's split usually into two camps. But that is affecting our behaviours, because if you don't fall into either camp, well, then you probably don't have any support.
There's also the rise of the tech corporation that's looking at you. And again, the difference between that and 1984 is that really all the tech corporation's really doing is trying to make money off of you, as opposed to maybe there's a component of control or whatever, but it's really about making money off of you in the most insidious way possible, and usually through servicing you through targeted ads and that sort of thing. And
I think what's been really interesting with that is that rampant capitalism through the internet, and the fact that it's okay if we're just trying to sell you more and move more items, has been exploited by rogue nations to pervert the political campaign. So I would say that we've seen what's happened over the last 12 months, but the big tech companies now have to be very mindful that if anything goes wrong in 2 years at the next US presidential election, that could be the end of freedom on the internet, whatever that means.
Whatever that means, exactly. All right, so we don't have flying cars yet, like Back to the Future predicted.
And we don't have robots?
No, we don't. I did encounter a robot in China, but they're not quite the iRobot type
we don't have the iRobots.
But are we really that far away from that actually happening? What about even just other science and medical and tech type things? Like, it seems like we're progressing faster than maybe we had been in the past.
Well, I think, we're undergoing a generational revolution now. So every 3-4 generations, there are big shifts, and this is the next big shift. The 60s was the last one. You would say that the 2020 to 2040 cycle will be another huge shift, and technology is driving this as it has in the past. And I think we'll see a lot of big changes to health. There'll be medicine's getting better and better all the time. I don't think we realise it because we haven't cured death. But we will cure a lot more of the diseases of ageing. People are living older. We've covered this before, and they're living healthier and happier lives. So medically, yes. I think technology-wise, look, we're on the cusp of driverless cars. It doesn't matter what anyone says. I don't think we'll probably ever go quite to driverless, but we're getting very close to automated vehicles, and you'll probably see them in a lot of settings.
Yeah. And just finally, all of this wrapped together, I've sensed, maybe this is, me getting older or something, the idea of that real experience of generational shift. So what we grew up with, how the culture interacted with each other, all that sort of thing. I personally have seen a fundamental shift away from that in the last 10 years.
Well, this is no longer, back in the olden days when I was a lad, this is all we had, compared to you. This is like, when grandma didn't have a telephone and everyone had a telephone in the 1980s, but we're seeing it now. I mean, we're lucky enough. I think this is probably the first time technology is being democratized across whole populations and globally, in that anyone can have an iPhone now.
Yeah. The other thing too, though, that I appreciate being part of this particular generation that we grew up in is that I think we were at least equipped with the ability to shift from one to the other. So although
there's no going backwards now.
although we have that appreciation for how things were, and we try to sort of not necessarily hold on to it, but still have that sort of, I guess, sense of social interaction that we used to, because we grew up also with the technology and also being able to grow with it. That it's kind of like, to me, at least as far as I'm concerned anyway, I feel like I know the balance between using it and not using it, and knowing how to interact even as a person with other people. And I am concerned about current generations coming through. This is even beyond millennials, if there's one after that, where I just look around and see some strange things going on just in terms of interactions, whether it's just something as simple as someone's more comfortable expressing themselves via messaging rather than talking to a person, that sort of stuff, or it could go even worse than that.
This cuts across whole tranches of our lives. So, this is easy to misinterpret, but you and I have some notion of physical labour as a way of just existing, whether it's mowing the lawn, whether it's washing the car, etc., etc. Automation is changing this, even whether it's watering the garden, even now with robots inside the house, housework. So it's not to say that we were better off because we worked harder than perhaps some people might have to work in the next 5 to 10 years. But, we take it for granted, but there's actually a skill to vacuuming, your house. There's actually a skill to watering your garden by eye, by hand, and a skill to washing your car and mowing your lawn, and countless other tasks that people used to perform manually. And you see it now. People don't know how to wash cars. They don't know how to mow the lawn. They don't know how to do the garden. They don't even want gardens, etc., etc. That is a huge shift. And you put that along with your social, communication of face-to-face as opposed to screen-to-screen, and you're looking at a really, really different world.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're seeing that in education as well. I mean, kids today have to have an iPad to get educated.
And how did we manage to do it?
How did we manage to do it? That's right.